Renowned columnist and senior analyst Mr. Kashif Mirza wrote in his column, Modi-US visit, US-India strategic partnership and Pakistan. The US has long viewed India as a counterbalance to China's growing influence in the region. Biden doesn't care that far-right Prime Minister Modi is closely linked to fascistic Hindu supremacist groups that violently oppress minorities. US woos India's far-right PM Modi to help wage new Cold War on China and Pakistan. President Biden emphasized common ground with Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India during a lavish state visit, publicly skirting points of friction over the government's crackdown on human rights in India and Russia's war in Ukraine in hopes of bolstering economic and geopolitical ties with the world's most populous nation. Whereas, in the joint US-Indian statement said, Biden and Modi strongly condemned cross-border terrorism, the use of terrorist proxies and called on Pakistan to take immediate action to ensure that no territory under its control is used for launching terrorist attacks. Pakistan's foreign ministry said India was using the allegations of extremism against Islamabad to deflect from the situation in Kashmir and the treatment of minorities in India. Pakistan also said it was deeply concerned over the planned transfer of advanced military technologies to India, saying such steps would not prove helpful in achieving peace in South Asia. Senior analyst Mr. Kashif Mirza said that the US president treated Modi to a day of red carpet pageantry and showered him with expansive flattery as he sought to draw India closer at a time when the United States finds itself locked in open conflict with Moscow and in an uneasy standoff with China. But even as the leaders announced a range of initiatives, they made no evident progress resolving the disagreements that have strained the relationship in recent months. Challenged on his record on human rights and religious freedom, Modi insisted that democracy is in India's DNA and denied that his government has fostered prejudice in serving its people. Modi added, even as demonstrators outside the White House gates protested the crackdown on dissent back in India. While Biden shied away from criticism of India's democratic backsliding, he stood by his characterization of President Xi Jinping of China as a dictator during a campaign fundraiser earlier. Mr. Kashif Mirza said the state visit for Modi was the latest move on the geopolitical chessboard as Biden seeks more allies against Moscow and Beijing. India, which remained staunchly non-aligned during the Cold War, has refused to join the American-led coalition aiding Ukraine in its war against invading Russian forces. And while India shares a certain enmity for China, it has not fully subscribed to Washington's strategy for restraining the Asian giant in the Indo-Pacific region or defending Taiwan against aggression. Senior analyst Mr. Kashif Mirza further added that Biden pronounced America's partnership with India the most consequential in the world. Preempting criticism, Modi portrayed India as the mother of democracy, as he put it, using the word democracy at 17 times in an hour-long speech, without caring the repression of Muslims and other minorities. Among other things, the Indian Prime Minister said that his country has grown from the world's 10th largest economy when he last addressed Congress in 2016 to the 5th largest today, almost as if determined to force the United States to see India as a near equal, not just an emerging power, but a great and rising one. Despite his warm greeting in the chamber, several liberal Democrats in Congress boycotted Modi's speech. The hypocrite and skepticism policy of Biden's strategy, the ease with which the Biden administration cast aside its commitment to supporting democracy over autocracy was breathtaking in its eagerness to please Indian Prime Minister. If the US expects that it can flatter Modi into security commitments in the Indo-Pacific that will translate into military support against China if Taiwan becomes a conflict zone, the US is deluding itself and has failed to understand what drives Indo-US relations. Renowned columnist Mr. Kashif Mirza expressed that India has played this quite well, playing Russia and the US off each other, and has benefited in the process. A country like India, which has such a strong convergence with the US on China, can create major spaces where it will differ very strongly from the US and can ride that out. While US relations with allies such as Saudi Arabia and Israel have come under political scrutiny in recent years, Modi's trip to the US has been welcomed with bipartisan support. However, Modi's human rights record has not gone entirely unremarked. A group of more than 70 lawmakers from the US House and Senate penned a letter to the Biden urging him to discuss concerns about religious freedom and journalistic expression in his talks with Modi. Modi's high-profile reception in the US is a far cry from what he experienced before. Modi had been banned from entering the US due to allegations that he turned a blind eye to anti-Muslim violence in the western Indian state of Gujarat in 2002, when he was the province's chief minister. In an annual report on religious freedom in May, the US State Department expressed concern about the situation in India, noting that there were open calls for genocide against Muslims and attacks on places of worship. But, the United States has set human rights issues aside in order to strengthen ties. At the end, Mr. Kashif Mirza suggested that by changing the balance of power in India's favor, Indo-US strategic partnership shall bring power transition in South Asia, and would therefore be perilous for Pakistan's security. The US government is trying to divide the BRICS bloc and recruit India for its new Cold War on China. Biden doesn't care that far-right Prime Minister Modi is closely linked to fascistic Hindu supremacist groups that violently oppress minorities. US woos India's far-right PM Modi to help wage new Cold War on China and Pakistan.
Even more momentous development in another AI, America and India.